We all know not to go up to those woods at the edge of the mountains. We've always known. There have always been tales of not quite human things roaming around up there, and generally, if we don't bother them, they don't bother us. They've been spotted in the trees sometimes at night, but nobody ever hangs around long enough to get a good look. They're huge, ape-like beings that only come out in the dark. Their footprints have been found close to the outskirts of town, but not very often. They're big enough to pass for gorilla footprints, but there are no gorillas around here. A few years back, a couple came passing through town. Said they were going camping. We told them not to, told them Bush Falls was prettier and safer, but they didn't listen. The young fellow laughed at us when we eventually told him that there was something up there, that the trail had gone bad. But off they went, and we watched them go, knowing it was up to God what happened next. We didn't hear anything for a full week, but then, one morning, Bessie opened up the diner, and that young fellow was conked out right there on the porch. He was a mess. His left arm was broken, twisted up all wrong, and his face was swollen like a purple melon where something had hit him. His left eye was closed shut, and half his teeth were gone, or broken down to nothing but little white splinters we saw once the doc had cleaned out some of the blood of his mouth. He woke up while we waited for an ambulance from the city to come and take him home. I half hoped he was going to tell us that the brakes on their car had failed, and that they'd come off the road into a tree, that maybe she was still out there waiting for help to arrive, but I knew better. Something had come to their camp, he said. The first 2 nights we heard it crunching around outside the tent, and we thought it was just a deer or maybe a bear. We packed up and moved on, and pitched up somewhere else to get out of its territory, then spent a day hiking to the lake. But when we got back, the whole site was ransacked. The tent was ripped to pieces, our food that we'd hung in the trees torn down, the bag that had our torches and medicine in it was gone. We got freaked out and headed back to the car, but that was all smashed up too. Windows shattered, mirrors pulled off. The hood was bent up and a tree branch had been jammed through the grill, and it was stuck right in the fucking engine. Nobody said anything. We started hiking back down the trail, but it got dark after a couple of hours, and we couldn't see, so we had to stop. I had a stick I thought I could fight some animal off with, so we tried to rest under some trees. Then whatever it was, it came in the middle of the night, roaring like a lion or a demon, and it hit me like a train. And I flew out of that clearing and landed in some bushes. Margot was screaming, but I couldn't see and I couldn't get up. The pain all up one side was so bad. She kept screaming while it carried her off. I heard its footsteps getting further away and I blacked out. Then I woke up and I couldn't hear her anymore. The room was deathly silent when he stopped talking, and he looked around at us all expectantly. "Did you hear what I said?" he asked. "There's a fucking monster out there, and it's got my wife." "We tried to warn you, son," I told him. "Nobody will be going back up there. I'm sorry." He tried to get up, but he groaned when the pain hit him. I figured his ankle wasn't right. Must have been Will alone that got him back down through the woods to town. "That's it. You're just going to leave her up there. Where's the sheriff?" Drury was standing in the doorway out of view of the young fellow, but he walked in at his cue. "I'm Bill Drury," he told him, "and my friend here is right. The first few hours are crucial if we're ever going to find someone alive. Nobody's coming back from a bear attack after all this time, all this way. And I'm sorry to tell you, but it's a fact." "That wasn't a fucking bear, and you know it," the young fella cried. "You all told me it was bad up there. You know what's up there. Why didn't I listen?" "Best you go home, son," said Drury, and there was no argument. The kid looked lost. As they bundled him into the ambulance, he swore he'd be back to find her with the authorities, but nobody came. They don't much care about communities out here, much less some unprepared city folk got themselves eaten by local wildlife. There are plenty of human bones up there. What's a few more? As far as I know, his car is still out there, years later. We certainly haven't been up to get it. There's a trapper who lives in town. Gurdon is his name, and he's about the only one who'll brave the woods much beyond where sight of the town gets scarce. He's seen his share of odd things out there, he told me one night over a beer as the first snowflakes started to blow around outside, and heard some strange things too. He'd been up there at the bottom of the mountain a little while after that young lady had gone missing, 10 months or so he reckoned, and he swore to me, right there and then, that from somewhere up high, among the ridges, he could hear a baby crying.